to another episode of Standard Function 2, Properties of Functions, Learning Target 3 Equations. I can identify the properties of a linear function given in an equation, table, graph, or context. Example, slope and y-intercept.
Where do you find the slope in slope-intercept form? Y equals mx plus b. For example, where do you find the slope of an equation? So you look at the coefficient on the x. So we're looking at this number right here. Or you can think of it just as the value of m. So notice that m is the coefficient. Remember, coefficient is the number in front of a variable. So m is the coefficient on the x. So the slope is just sitting right here in the form y equals mx plus b. Where do you find the y-intercept in slope-intercept form? You just look for the value of b. So that last term, if it's written in y equals mx plus b, is the y-intercept. So looking at these equations here, we're just going to notice the column. First one is just the equation that's given. The second column is to rewrite the equation in correct slope-intercept form. And the third column is slope, which is rise over run. And the fourth column is the y-intercept, which we're going to write as a coordinate pair. So if we look at this first one, notice it is in y equals mx plus b form, so we don't have to rewrite it. So we're just going to put it back into y equals 5x plus 7. And the slope, remember I said, was the coefficient of the x, which is the m value, so that's 4 over 5. And the y-intercept is that last term, so y equals mx plus b, where in this case it's 0, 7. Looking at the next example, notice that it's kind of flip-flop. So we're going to look for the mx. In this case, it's negative 9x, and then the y-intercept is 10. So to write it in that correct form, remember our form is y equals mx plus b, we're going to flip-flop that 9x, actually negative 9x, that 10. So rewritten correctly would be y equals, this is the negative, and notice the sign goes with the term, negative 9x, and the y-intercept is 10, and that's a positive 10. So now it's in the correct form. So what is the slope? It's written right here. And remember, slope is written as rise over run, and we could simplify it down into a whole number. So to put it back into the look of a ratio, or rise over run, we're just going to put that over 1, because negative 9 divided by 1 is negative 9. And then your y-intercept in this case is a positive 10. So 0 is always the x value, 10 is the y value. And the next problem, so it looks like y equals, so we're in that correct form, y equals, we have a negative x but no y-intercept. So if you think about that, what could we add to this equation that would not change the values of these equations? So what you could add is a 0. So your new form is y equals negative, and I'll put a 1x so it makes more sense, plus that 0, because it mathematically won't make a difference by adding 0. So what is my slope? Look at the coefficient from the x, where the m is, and you see negative 1. And I'm just going to write that negative 1 over 1, so it looks like rise over run. And then my y-intercept is 0. So this one starts at the origin, 0, 0. Next problem here, y equals 15. So thinking about that form, y equals mx plus b. Notice we're missing this whole entire second, or I should say first term, mx. So what can that mathematically be again without bothering it? The formula or the equation, it would have to be 0. So in this case, it would be y equals 0x, because that, if we add it to 15, wouldn't do anything. So 0x is added to 15, will go back to 15. So these equations are equivalent, but this is written in y equals mx plus b format. Which one is the slope? The slope is 0, which remember from previous, if you graph this, this would actually sit as a horizontal line. So this is 0 over 0. It has no rise, it has no run. And then your y-intercept is right here at positive 15. And there's your equation. This one is going to take a little bit more work. We have to combine like terms. because right now we have 1, 2, 3 terms, but 2 of those terms are alike. So if you look closely, 6x and this one's a negative 8x can be combined together to make negative 2x. So put it in the correct form here. We always put y equals my mx, in this case is negative 2x, plus the 11 that's still sitting here has to be the y-intercept. So going through this, here is my slope, right? That is in ratio, so it's negative 1, negative 2. We're going to put that over 1. And then our y-intercepts are last term, so that's at 0, 11. And the final couple examples here. This one, we're going to use that distributive property we've talked about in EE7. So we're going to take negative 3 times 12, which is negative 36. We're going to take negative 3 times a negative 2x, which is a positive 6x, and y equals. Now we're just going to put them in the correct order. So here is your slope, positive 6x, because it's a coefficient on the x, so y equals 6x. And here is your y-intercept, and the negative goes with that, so minus 36. Looking at this, here is my slope as said, the coefficient on the x, so this would be 6 over 1. And then my y-intercept is a negative 36, and that's 0, negative 36. Last one. This one looks way out of sorts. And the good news is on the ones before it is always y equals, y equals, y equals, y equals, y equals, y equals, but this one is not. So this one we have to force to become y equal. So we'll just do the math here. That means I want this little y by itself. So I'll start getting rid of the stuff and peeling away the stuff I don't want on this side of the equation. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take negative 12x off. So then I'd have negative 3y's equals 30, take away 12x's, because you can't actually take physically 12x's away from 30. Then you'd have to divide by negative 3, and each term gets divided by negative 3. So negative 3 divided by negative 3 is y. 30 divided by negative 3 is negative 10. Negative 12 divided by negative 3 is a positive 4x. So now I'm just going to write it in correct order. So y, which we needed by itself, we did a good job. This is your slope. Remember the coefficient with the x, so 4x, and your y-intercept is sitting right here at negative 10. So the final thing is just write it up here. Slope, so 4 over 1. Y-intercept, 0, negative 10. So this is how you find the slope and y-intercept of your lovely equations in y equals mx plus b.